everybody? Welcome to Simply Cyber Firesides. I'm your host, as always, Dr. Gerald Auger, and today I am thrilled to welcome Christophe Limpalair, founder at Cybr and a driving force in cloud security education. If you are remotely interested in cloud security and learning about cloud security, well then get a comfy chair, get a notepad and paper, and get settled in, because this episode is going to be lit. Christophe is a tech entrepreneur who has built his career at the intersection of technology and business, and as the founder of Cybr, that's CYBR, he's addressing one of the industry's most pressing challenges, the global shortage of cyber skills and the struggle organizations face in identifying and finding the right talent. Now, his entrepreneurial journey began when he founded Scale Your Code in 2015, a platform where he interviewed experts from companies like Stack Overflow, Ruby's on Rails, Reddit, and Netflix to share their knowledge with the broader tech community. Now, Christophe's experience scaling educational platforms is truly impressive. I could say that since I have an educational platform, look at what he's doing is amazing. He was one of the first employees at Linux Academy, helping grow it from a $4 million to $40 million revenue in less than... how long? Less than 4 years? I'm like, oh, Jesus. Okay. As chief product officer and later VP of growth, he led product and marketing teams, drove partnerships with major players like AWS. You may have heard of them. Small little, startup AWS. I joke, obviously, and played a key role in the company's evolution. And when Linux Academy merged with the cloud guru through Bain Capital, the combined organization ultimately sold for $2 billion. $2 billion to Pluralsight. My mind, you know that meme where the guy's like, and like the little like solar thing? That's what's going on right now. Now, today, through Cybr, Christophe focuses on AWS security training with specialized courses and learning paths covering everything from certification preparation to hands-on penetration testing labs. His approach emphasizes practical skills with real-world scenarios, those hands-on labs, y'all, helping security pros understand both offensive and defensive cloud security architecture. Cloud security techniques. Justin Gold just hooked me up, but also buffer overflowed my brain. Here we go, really quickly, just so we're all on the same page, right? This is what's going on when I read about Christophe's $4 billion acquisition. Ah! Okay, so anyways, let's get him onto the stage here, because enough about me flipping out, okay? Listen, he helps people with cloud security learning, basically stand pat. Now, what does he know about cloud security? Well, I don't know. He holds an AWS Certified Security Specialty Certificate. He's also got some other certs, right? He brings theoretical knowledge and practical expertise into his training materials, which is what you really want. Honestly, you don't want someone who's never actually been in the muck to tell you what it's like to get dirty, right? We're going to talk about Christophe's insights on cloud security training, the skills gap in the industry, and how organizations can better prepare their teams to secure cloud environments, probably by training practitioners like you. Guys, as always, I encourage you to be as active and as engaged as you feel comfortable doing. We're here for you. This is a community service, right? We're going to be talking cloud security. If you got a second, hit the little share button and drop it into your socials. Let people know we're doing this, because this is live right now. If you have questions, put them in chat, put a Q in the front, and we will get them to Christophe. I am here to facilitate a learning opportunity and a good time for everybody involved. Without further ado, put your Oprah emotes together, squad members, and let's say hello to Christophe Limpalair. What's up, Christophe? How you doing?
Hey, good. What an introduction. I don't think we can top that. We should probably just stop there, honestly.
All right, everybody. We had a great show today. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time. Yeah, no, dude, love it. So, dude, you obviously have quite an impressive background, but it seems like you've always been kind of orbiting around education. Why? Like, what is it about cybersecurity education that's like motivating to you, or you find that call to service?
Two main reasons. The first one is I just genuinely enjoy helping people. And one of the ways that I figured that out, in addition to actually doing it and getting joy from it, was back when I was at Linux Academy. I'll never forget the first time I went to a conference and I met one of my students, and the guy literally came up to me and he's like, I took your training. it changed my life. I was able to get this job. I was able to stay in the United States, and it just completely changed my family's trajectory. And so that kind of connection on a human level of just going beyond me putting out training material on the internet and just seeing numbers go up of people watching it to actual human beings changing lives and or having better lives as a result of it. It's just such a humbling experience. So that's I would say that's the main reason. The second main reason is because frankly that's how I learn best, is trying to take complex topics and then trying to explain them and realizing that I have a lot of gaps in my own knowledge, and having deadlines around needing to create this training forces me into a learning path of my own that I now have to go research this and become an expert in this as much as I can before I can turn around and piece all the stuff together and put it in a way that's easily digestible by my learners. So really those two things keep drawing me back to education, for better or worse. And I've tried to escape from it a couple of times, and somehow, like you said, I just keep gravitating back towards it. So we'll see. We'll see how long that lasts. But for now, it's here to stay.
I love it. Now, I mean, well, cloud in general is like such a different paradigm. I feel like there was a lot of, I don't want to call it ignorance, but ignorance, I guess is the right word. When cloud kind of first broke on, it was like, oh, it's just a data center in the sky and it's a lift and shift of your on-prem infrastructure. And it became painfully aware to everybody that, you know, the way platform works, the way services work, the way CI/CD pipelines work, it really is a different paradigm altogether. How did you like transition? Because you know, you've been around long enough. I would assume that you were doing things before cloud. So, how did this transition occur for you to get into cloud and specifically AWS?
My background actually began in web development. So back in the day, just raw PHP and raw JavaScript. You didn't have all these frameworks and libraries. And so that kind of ages me a little bit more there, but good times anyway. And so I would build these web applications, and then we would deploy the web applications depending on the customer to various environments. But even though I wrote a lot of the backend code, I typically just kind of lobbed that code over the fence to the server backend or cloud backend. And I never really saw how to work that on those servers. So I would write the code, create the code, pass it on to somebody else, or just hack something together for myself, and then push that out to whatever the backend servers were or wherever they were hosted. And that went on for a long time. But after a while, I was getting frustrated because, I mean, just not knowing what that black box is or how it works, or why sometimes it wouldn't work, why we'd have errors, why it would be really slow, like the web app would load super slow. Just issues like that where I would have to wait on somebody else for them to investigate and fix it in order to make it better. So after getting really frustrated with that, I started spending more time in the server space and trying to learn just basic Linux sysadmin skills and that sort of thing, and being able to SSH into a box and figure out, okay, this is why it's running slow, or here's why it crashed, and so on and so forth. So that kind of, when that transition for myself started happening was around the same time that the cloud transition was starting to happen as well. So AWS was getting really, really big, or was in the initial stages of getting really big, I should say. And I was seeing more people talking about it. I was seeing more folks in the industry transitioning and migrating over to it. So I thought, okay, that looks like that's the future. That's probably the best way to get started. And it's also probably a lot easier and cheaper. And I'm kind of cheap in that way. So let's give it a shot. Let's try it out. And so that's how I started to get my hands dirty with AWS and really transitioning into basically falling in love with how the cloud works and how to build on top of it. And then the rest is history after that.
So I also was a a software engineer before I got into security. Like, what I'm curious about is too, like, so you went from web dev into, you know, AWS. You could still be developing on the, you know, the cloud infrastructure side, but you found passion in security. Was there some type of event or some type of you know, yeah, I guess event? Like, personally, my code got audited against FISMA and I failed, and I was super angry, and I like was outraged that that wasn't true. My code was good, and then that's how I found security. So I'm just curious: was there like a moment or an event or something that kind of introduced you to the security world?
I would say there were multiple, and I resisted, to be honest with you. I resisted going into security for a very long time, and we can talk more about that if you want to. But just to give a short little history so that it makes a little bit more sense is when I was 11 years old, I'm actually French, so I was born and raised in France. And when I was 11, my parents moved us to the United States. And I've never been a very social kid. So I had a hard time making friends. I was in a completely new world, knew nobody, and just didn't know how to socialize. So I just kind of turned to computers and became social on the internet. It just seemed a lot more natural and easier for me to do that. And so I started playing a lot of these video games. And I don't know if anybody here has ever played StarCraft or StarCraft 1, but back then you used to have these kind of like IRC chats or channels, where you would create your own clans. You'd go in and it's supposed to be a gaming clan, so you could war with other clans and see who won the most matches and then who came out on top. But people started building websites and they started hosting events and all this stuff. And I was an adolescent at this point, so I got into some nefarious activities. And so we would actually go and we would attack these websites and we would deface them and vice versa, right? They would come back and do the same to us. We would try to phish them with malware to get their credentials. Like it was stupid stuff. And at the time I didn't know any better. It just seemed like a fun thing to do. And so that's kind of when I dipped my toes into the unofficial security world. Like I wasn't employed by an organization to do anything security related, but I just kind of gravitated towards that. However, as I started to grow up a little bit and mature a little bit more and realizing that what I was doing was just silly and destructive for no reason, then I shifted more into, okay, how can I make my code more secure? Because it's currently vulnerable to SQL injections or cross-site scripting or whatever else. And as a result, my websites and my clients' websites are getting defaced or taken over or whatever. And so that's kind of when I dipped my toes into, or started dipping my toes into the world of application security, web security, that sort of thing. And then fast forward a little bit to answer the full question is, as we were building out Linux Academy, my role really wasn't security as much, but with that scale that you described in the introduction, that attracts a lot of good and bad attention, unfortunately, for basically any business, where especially because we also had all kinds of cloud and server hands-on labs, we would attract a lot of crypto mining or folks that were trying to launch attacks from our own resources. So we started hitting these issues and having problems even with some of the underlying cloud providers where they're like, hey, your servers are hosting malware or launching DDoS attacks. You guys need to take care of this. We also had moments where we would wake up with massive bills because we just hadn't secured our cloud environments. And so basically just this mess of security issues started creeping up and nobody was really focusing on it because we were a fast growing startup. We're like, it's okay, just do a quick patch, we'll move on. We got to build features. We got to grow faster. And so security ended up kind of suffering as a result of that. And that made me realize, as I was talking to other organizations, that especially in the small to medium business side and startup side, security is really freaking hard. And most people end up ignoring it unless they have a team that really truly believes in security. And so that's kind of where I started to realize, wait a minute, there's a gap here. We got to do something about this. And that's kind of when I started shifting my focus more in that area.
Ah, I see. You were pulled into security. Not
Exactly.
Good. All right. I like that. I can get down with that. We got a couple questions coming from chat. Let's throw those out there. Carrie wants to know, basically, you ever run Linux as a daily driver? You know anyone that runs Linux as a daily driver? You know, Microsoft Windows and Mac have such a footprint. And let's just put Mac aside as a Linux distro. And you know anyone
that runs Linux as a daily driver?
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like it's less and less common now. If you asked me that even 10 years ago, I probably could have given you multiple examples. But today, I don't know that I can. I'd have to think on that and get back to you. I know some folks in our community do, right? Or at least partially they'll run Linux as their main OS. Now, of course, if you're running servers, then yes, if you're not running Windows, you're running some sort of Linux distro. But for day-to-day working activities, I don't know that many people that are doing that anymore, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so it's possible, just a little less common, Carrie. Augusta Delgado says, what do you think is the future for SaaS solutions? Will AI empower these or retire them?
What do you think? What was the first part of the question? Oh, it's on the screen here. What do you think is the future for SaaS solutions? I love this question. We could talk about AI for an hour. I'm all about it right now. Look,
I
I
just got
think
back, I just got back from RSA, dude. Like it's like AI everything.
it is, and I love it. I also partially hate it, but I mostly love it. So I'm all about that. I'm trying to go all in on AI and see what happens. But look, I don't know that anybody knows. I think everything is changing so rapidly right now that a few different trains of thoughts. In some cases, I think it's really going to enhance a lot of these products, especially if we're talking, like you mentioned, SaaS. That's such a broad category, so I'll narrow it down a little bit. But if you're talking about like business tooling, massive benefits. I was trying to get a return on my investment calculation done for how much time I'm saving just creating content, managing the community, doing marketing, using AI, and it's hours per week. I mean, it's a whole day by the end of the week. So I'm basically just working 6 days instead of what I used to work 7. I actually work more than that, but you get the point that I'm trying to make. So from a business perspective, massive benefits, and it's very exciting. From a security perspective, it's still the cat and mouse game, right? You've got the offensive side that is going to develop a lot of tooling that uses AI, or you're going to have a lot of beginners that are able to do more damage because they won't necessarily still know how to do it, but AI is going to help them go further with it, I think. And on the blue team side, defensive side, same thing. You're going to have a lot of tooling, and we're already seeing a lot of this that is enhanced by AI. And some of it is kind of gimmicky. It doesn't really work yet. And other stuff is extremely helpful. And I can provide a couple examples if we want to dive more into that. So the last part that I'll add to that question is I also do agree that you have so many people who are vibe coding, myself included, to be honest. We're seeing so much vibe coding. You're going to have a plethora of web apps, mobile apps, IoT software that are going to be littered with security issues and vulnerabilities. And so that's going to be interesting to see how that turns out.
Wow, there you go. Vibe coding. It might be the term that gets entered into the dictionary for 2025. I feel like it's got a real chance here. So Christophe is founder at Cybr. Is that how you pronounce it? Cybr? Like, I mean, just the way it looks.
Yep, Cybr.
So this is Cybr right here. You can see it. This is his company. And basically what it is exactly what it looks like. You get AWS cloud security learning skills. So, and I'll drop links to all this in chat in a minute. We'll go through a little bit of the learning paths and what. But Christophe, obviously this is I would assume there's two kind of main audiences, right? One, you're trying to help people get skills so they can get employed. And two, you're trying to help active practitioners who basically are now responsible for AWS stuff learn how to properly secure. Was that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. Yep, that sums it up very well.
Okay, so let's talk about someone looking to specialize in cloud security. You got this, right? But in a generic agnostic way, what learning path would you recommend someone who's in that position take? And, how has that changed from, even when you started getting into it?
I'll answer that second question first because it's the easiest one, which is compared to when I started doing it and learning it, there are so many helpful resources now, anywhere from free to very affordable, all the way to extremely expensive stuff as well if your company's paying for it. But there's so many resources nowadays. It's never been easier. And especially when you combine that with AI and have it enhance your learning, it's just learning how to do cloud and cloud security properly nowadays is so much easier now. The challenge there is there's so much information. It's actually getting harder to figure out what to focus on. So we're seeing a lot of squirrel brain activities where people are getting distracted or they're just jumping on the shiny objects and they're getting distracted and kind of veering off the path. But so answer one is check out all the available resources. Definitely now is a good time to learn if you've ever had an interest in doing that. If you're trying to figure out what path to go from A to Z with cloud and cloud security, and I mentioned those two separately because I think right now, look, you can, even as a beginner, you can certainly learn some stuff about cloud security, but if you're really interested in diving into the world of cloud security, I would actually take a couple steps back, just like if you're interested in other types of IT security, kind of learn the fundamentals of networking and of applications and so on and so forth, build that solid foundation, and then start building on top of that with a little bit more specialized training. So we do have some beginner friendly level content, absolutely, and we're going to be building more in the near future. But if you're a complete beginner to IT, I think you should focus your time a lot more on a lot of those fundamentals. And so a lot of times we'll recommend certifications for that reason. whether you believe in certifications or not, they can give you fantastic learning paths for filling in those gaps and learning the fundamentals. Once you've got some of those cloud fundamentals and you start using something like AWS or Azure or whatever your cloud provider of choice is, once you get some of that experience, then you can start to really specialize and get a lot more focused skills and expertise in those respective cloud providers. And that's really where something like Cybr truly shines.
100%. And so when you're learning cloud security, like is there any transferable knowledge going from AWS to Azure to Google to, dare I say, Oracle, right? I mean, but like, is there any transferable, or is it like you have to pick a platform and that's like where you start at ground zero and learn on that platform, and it's not really transferable across platforms?
There is a lot that's transferable, and that's why I typically recommend, and everybody's got a different opinion on this, but I typically recommend learning one platform pretty well before you start to jump around all the other different platforms so you don't get as confused as to what's going on. You can build a little bit more depth. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't start learning one and then take a peek at the Azure side, for example, and see, oh, that this is the S3 equivalent. Here's kind of roughly how it works. Instead of bucket policies, it has this. Instead of this, it has that, et cetera, et cetera. But I think long-term, unless you have an employer, or unless you're trying to work for an employer that specifically says you need to have these skills across GCP, Azure, AWS, maybe even Cloudflare, something like that. Unless you have that going on, I think there's a lot of value in learning at least one of those platforms extremely well, because then it's going to be easier to jump to the other ones. Even though they may have a lot of differences, you can at least compare those differences and you can see how they're different. And the analogy I give to that is, if you come from a programming background, as we both do here, if you're learning something like JavaScript, or if you're learning something like PHP, Java, any of those languages, it becomes a lot easier to then learn a secondary, tertiary, et cetera, language as well. To me, in my opinion, cloud is the same thing.
All right, there you go. Carrie has a question too around entry-level jobs. This is that classic paradigm challenge of, or catch-22 challenge of, get experience to get the job, but how do you get the job without experience? Any suggestions around, I guess, cyber in general, but since we're really here to talk about cloud security, like, are there entry-level cloud security jobs? And obviously, I think entry-level is going to have an asterisk on it, but can you talk about kind of the junior level roles inside of cloud security?
So the tricky part about job roles in general is they come across, or they're displayed as so many different types of names. So if you go and you just type cloud security engineer, maybe you might find some stuff where they say that it's entry level and you don't need prior experience, but most of those you're probably going to have at least like 2 years experience with XYZ platform and blah, 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 blah. So I haven't done podcasting in a while for Cybr, but when we were running the podcast, I've interviewed a number of folks that also struggled with this when they joined our Discord community. Initially, they had that same question. And then a year or 2 or 3 later, they came on the podcast because they landed that job. And so they were able to share the experience. And every single one of those people have told me, apply anyway. The worst thing that can happen is you get rejected. And don't get me wrong, mentally, that can be extremely draining. It can be extremely frustrating. It could be bad for your mental health. So there is that negative component. I'm not trying to downplay that at all. But the alternative of that is you're never going to get the job. So even if they have some of those requirements where they say you need at least 2 years of AWS experience or whatever, or IAC experience, and you don't have, you may have some of that experience through learning, but not through an actual job, just create projects, right? Fill in those gaps in other ways. And I can share more of that if you want to. Fill in those gaps in other ways, put that on your resume, push the resume through, and the worst that can happen is you just don't hear back, or they say no. So that's usually my main recommendation. We can dive a little bit more into the other stuff if you want me to, though.
Yeah, absolutely. One question that I always like to ask, especially like recently, I'm a huge advocate that you need to have portfolios or, some type of like off resume landing page that has content to it, whether it's a GitHub, whether it's a website, whether it's a YouTube page or whatever, just something that allows you to illustrate your capabilities and, your passions, your interests, your proactivity. What do you recommend if, someone comes to you and is like, oh, like, I've got all the right things, but I need to be able to demonstrate this practical skill. I mean, I feel like we've gotten away from just being able to show that you completed 5 cyber rooms, right? It's evolved beyond that.
Especially right now, it's a tough market. Anybody that says it's not I think, is diluting it, because it's just really hard right now. A lot of companies are laying off. There's a lot of people flooding the job market, and fewer job postings coming online. So it's a tough time, and I'm sorry if you're going through that. The answer that I give to this it's a tricky answer. And Gerald, I actually was watching one of your episodes, and you talked about this. I think it was with John Hammond, if I remember correctly. But
Cool.
you both were talking about, and I've had the exact same experience, where you've actually never had, or more recently have never had, to interview for a job position. And when you say that, it sounds insane. It sounds crazy. That's also been my experience. And the reason that's been my experience is unique in the sense that I've been putting out so much content over the past, I don't even know, 20 years or 15 years or whatever it's been at this point. And being active, being out in the community, sharing learnings, meeting people, going to meetups, going to events, rubbing shoulders, that's usually how you get the good jobs. And if they already know you, you get recommendations. They may not even need to take a look at your resume. Like I don't remember the last time I actually updated my resume. The only time I submitted resumes have been when I was just curious to see what kind of responses I would get. I was straight out of school. I wasn't even actually interested in the jobs because I already had something lined up, but I was just curious, like, hey, what kind of responses would I get for this resume? And I submitted that. Since then, I've never even looked at the resume. So it is unique, and I completely recognize that. However, I think a lot of people can learn something from that, because if you think about it, every single person takes the exact same steps to apply to job positions. They update their resume, they get certifications, and they submit it through a job portal. And that's what most people end up needing to do. So it's normal. However, try to find a way to differentiate from that. And the response I gave to somebody in my community this exact week was, go to a company, like, look at a company that you would love to work for, even if they're not hiring, and look at some of their blog posts, some of their podcasts, whatever. Look at some of the challenges or some of the products they're building, and try to build something that's relevant to that. Even if it's not a complete solution, or it won't be a complete solution, but the fact that you're putting effort towards a project like that, putting it on GitHub, sharing it on LinkedIn, if you're okay with video and audio, putting it on YouTube, whatever, have a little blog, write about it, tweet about it, whatever, stuff like that gets picked up. Maybe not the next day, right? Maybe it takes 6 months or maybe even 2 years. But as you put stuff like that out there, as a potential hirer myself, right, as a hiring manager, if somebody did that for something related to cyber, if I were in a position to hire, which I'm not right now, but if I were, your resume would go at the very top of the pile. I would not even look at the other candidates before talking to you first, because you are putting the effort. You are doing things that no other candidate is doing. Instead, what we're seeing a lot of is just copy and paste, cover letter, submit it through, because AI is scraping the information anyway. And it's becoming a machine process system instead of a human process system. If you inject the human element back into it, you will stand out from the crowd. I can't guarantee it, but that's been my personal experience.
Well, all right. So Christophe says it, and then we have another director of cybersecurity for a cloud company, clearly a hiring manager capability. True statement, make those relationships. So, more people echoing. I mean, I can tell you personally, it's happened to me. It is I've done it. You know what I mean? So right there with, in fact, I literally just hired someone to help me at RSA. And it wasn't like I did a RFP, you know what I mean? Like, I reached out to someone who I knew could do the work because I've seen them demonstrate it. And I was like, oh, hey, you want a little project here? So it's 100% right on. I love it. All right, so let's go back to Cybr, okay? Because we were talking about this. This is Christophe's platform that he built. Now, I asked you in the green room, by the way, I swear to the community, I'm a full-blown adult. My voice just cracked like I was like 14. Okay, so this is Cybr. Now, one interesting thing you said was that people really get geeked up about these hands-on labs, which I completely get and understand. What are we looking at here, and what can people check out for free, Christophe, right? Because, it's always like, do the free stuff first.
So there's a free tab right next to the all that's highlighted. So if you click on that, you can see all of our currently free labs, which we have quite a few. I don't remember exactly how many, but it's definitely at least 10. And it's all related to cloud security. So these are one-click deploy hands-on labs, which means that if you create just a free account for these, you go in, you click on it, and you click on Launch Lab. It's going to give you some sort of credential, and then you can complete that scenario. And those credentials can be anything from AWS console credentials. So it actually gives you an AWS environment. That's your own environment for that time being, where you'll go through and you'll launch real resources. It doesn't cost you a penny to do that. We eat that cost for you. So you have no stress, no fear of doing anything wrong. You literally go in the environment and you complete that scenario. All the way to access keys. So instead of jumping into the AWS console itself, we would give you access keys for programmatic access. So you learn how to access or talk to the AWS API, again, in a completely safe environment. And then finally, we also have other types of labs where maybe there's a vulnerable application, a web application, for example, and you'll get back a host name or URL, and you need to jump into that web app, and you need to try and find the vulnerability and capture the flag and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of variety across both Blue Team and Red Team labs as well. They're really fun. I'm a little biased, but they're super fun.
Now, I have pinned the URL to the free tier of, I guess, labs, if you will. You can see here. Here's the YouTube chat. If you click on the pinned chat, it'll come up with the link that takes you directly to this free section of the course. So you can check out this stuff and, basically mess around with it. Christophe, what's the prerequisite knowledge for individuals doing some of these labs?
It really depends. It's all across the board. We have everything from beginner friendly, so I can talk about those prereqs, all the way to more advanced, like intermediate to slightly advanced. And those, of course, would be a little bit more challenging if you're a complete beginner. But if you go for some of those beginner level labs, I do my best to try and get anybody that's able to download the AWS CLI or open a browser window and connect to the internet, be able to complete those labs. So they don't necessarily need to have a whole lot of IT experience. They just need to be able to do a little bit of troubleshooting and connect those dots. So if you scroll back up a little bit, I think I saw it just a second ago, but actually, no, they're on a different page. We don't have to go hunting for them. But,
oh, no. I mean, I was on the free tier. I went to the beginner one, so I can just go
oh,
back.
okay. No, yeah, you can always do beginner as well. But for example, there's a lab that's literally, I think it's called Introduction to the AWS CLI, where I walk you through how to get started.
No, I literally just saw it. I think it's this one right here, right? Convert
No,
CLI.
that one's a little bit different. That one's also beginner friendly, but that one is a little bit different.
Okay.
Speaking of, I'm actually working on adding a search feature. So at some point, it will just search for those hands-on labs instead of the entire platform. But yeah, so that's one example where as long as you're able to download the AWS CLI and install that piece of software, you can do the lab. It's really not going to be anything that's overly advanced and very, very beginner friendly.
Dude, this is crazy, all these different labs and things you got in here. One question I wanted to ask you, and I see a lot of labs that deal with this. Would you say in larger environments, you will have dedicated identity and access management professionals, right? They're like security adjacent, but they exist, right? And identity is the new perimeter, and you give me all that stuff. But in the world of AWS, if you work in cloud security and you become very experienced and skilled in AWS security, at some point, do you fork and have to choose whether you become deep at IAM or deep at basically the platform security, or are you is it kind of one and all the same?
No, certainly. And especially at larger enterprise scale, like you pointed out, where there's a lot more of that specialization and segmentation. So if you go to a very, very large organization, or we're talking thousands of employees, they're going to have roles that are dedicated to managing IAM and Identity Center, for example, and then other roles that maybe are more focused on the networking side of AWS and the serverless side and database and so on and so forth. So there's absolutely a lot of that specialization going on too. But if you're talking about small to medium businesses, usually no. Usually you have somebody that's wearing a lot of hats. So they are handling the infrastructure. They have to architect the environments. They have to set up the virtual private clouds, which is a networking component. They have to set up the databases. They have to set up the IAM and everything else that goes with it. Maybe they have some help. Maybe it's a team of who knows, 2 to 10 or whatever. Really depends on the organization, the size of it, and how much they prioritize this stuff. But a lot of cases, you do have people that are a little bit more generalists in that sense of the term.
I love it. Now, another, I guess, question or area of interest that caught my eye at the Cybr site is this CloudSec Cybr. This is a public repo for all things cloud security. Public sounds free. So what is this cloud like? What is this like? Why should people? I'm going to drop a link to it, but like what are we doing here?
So yeah, you can even click around, especially on the AWS side. We don't have as much content on the Azure and GCP side yet. Hopefully people will help contribute. But it's basically just a central repository of a lot of content that I've created and gathered over the years. So honestly, I want to say it was probably Chris, and we should mention Chris on here because he's
Whitlock?
awesome. Yep, Chris Whitlock made this
Whitlock's the
possible.
one he dropped it in mod chat for me to put it on.
Oh, cool. And I think it might have been you, Chris, who one day you were DMing me, and I can't remember if you were asking me a question about, I think you were asking me like, hey, do you have just all these notes that you've gathered over the years? How do you search them? How do you traverse them? Frank, I don't remember the exact question, but long story short, that led me on a journey to try and extract my notes that I have stored in my systems everywhere and put them in a central free GitHub repo just to see what would happen. And if anybody liked it, they could contribute. We've had some contributions over the years. It's not grown as much as I was hoping it would, to be honest with you, but I've also not promoted it a whole lot. So it's probably my fault. I've not done enough of the marketing side of it, but it's basically just a dump of a lot of my knowledge across AWS for a variety of topics, anywhere from how to manage IAM and Identity Center to how to do threat detection, incident response, how to enumerate and run different types of threat tools like Stratus Red Team and et cetera, et cetera. So it's got a lot of content in there, but hopefully we continue to get more and more folks contributing to it.
I just dropped a link to it in chat if anyone wants to contribute to that. I saw earlier Evolvin, I think was his name or her name, Evolvin, said they were director of cloud security. So right up in the mix, maybe an opportunity to contribute to this and check that out. Love it. So if you have questions for Christophe, please drop them in chat. Obviously, we are here to help facilitate knowledge share and education. I do want to follow up with another question. So you mentioned earlier that networking is huge, and we talked about how to kind of put a portfolio together for yourself and the benefits of that. I do see questions from AB, so we'll answer that question in a minute. But also, I feel like community and networking is huge. Now, you actually do run a community, if I'm not mistaken, right? And I wanted to bring that up and just kind of share it. Now, this is nuance for only a specific set of people, but if you happen to live in that Denver area, Christophe, what's the Denver Cloud Security Meetup?
I appreciate you mentioning it. We're definitely trying to grow it. It's so it's the Denver Cloud Security Meetup in the Denver, Colorado area. So if you live nearby or if you're flying through at the right time, we host a monthly event where we will either have myself presenting something or we have a lot of guest speakers across any topic related to cloud security. So we actually had somebody last month that was talking about how to use AI for threat detection and analyzing logs and reducing noise and stuff like that. That was really interesting. And then this month, in 2 weeks, we are doing a cloud security CTF at the Denver Datadog office. So thanks to them for hosting the space for us. And so yeah, if you are in the area, please definitely reach out if you want to learn more about this, or check it out on meetup.com and you can join. It's entirely free. We don't have any fees. Instead, we try to get sponsors to cover any costs that we have.
That's right, 100%. So if you are in that Denver area, I do know in chat right now, Jesse Johnson, aka the Cosmic Cowboy, former rock star, is in that area, so
Nice.
you might be able to make it over there. Super glad you do this. I mean, basically, this is like a in-person version of like Simply Cyber, which is like what I'm super proud of and like fuels my fire. So I totally get it. Christophe, here we go. AB had a question. I want to bring it up in chat while I'm kind of getting the screen reset. When you're the producer and the talent, you have to kind of do this. What are your top 3 favorite books in the cloud sec space?
Oh, that's a tough one. Ooh,
Maybe, or
hmm.
what are three resources maybe that you like in the cloud security space?
Yeah, because to be honest with you, I don't read as many technical books nowadays for some reason. I recently discovered that I do better reading when I'm on a Kindle than physical books. So I have picked that back up. And there is one book, and I'm completely spacing on the name of it. And unfortunately, I don't think I have it in here. Yeah, I think it's in the other room, or I would grab it because it's a book. If you want to connect with me afterwards, I will find the name of it. It's well written, it's very interesting, and it's about red teaming for the cloud. So it walks through how to set up your own command and control situation, and so that you can actually go again or go attack some clients' AWS environments, try to find vulnerabilities, and do the whole shebang. So that book was very interesting. I really enjoyed reading it. I'm sorry I'm spacing on the name, but feel free to connect with me afterwards if you would like to know the name of it. Another resource so some resources I like for cloud security. There's one that so like if you're interested more in news, for example, there's a news feed that I recently came across. Oh, where did I put it? It's somewhere in my community. I think it's under tools here. Okay, yeah, there's a website called awssecuritychanges.com. And so that will actually go through and it creates a feed of a bunch of different changes related to AWS security. So if you're interested in that, that's definitely a very good resource. Otherwise, there's a few folks that I follow on LinkedIn that have good content. For example, there's Christophe Limpalair from Datadog. There's the gentleman that I'm spacing the name of who runs hacking the .cloud. Fantastic resource as well. So I would follow those two. There are more that I'm not thinking of right now, but there's definitely a lot of really great stuff, especially on LinkedIn, of people building that help a lot with cloud security, like keeping up to date with events and news and whatnot.
Yeah, and I dropped a link to this. This is the AWS security changes that Christophe mentioned. Christophe, not a question, more of a comment, and then you can riff off of it. Why does AWS name all their stuff so stupid? Like, what are we doing here? Like, oh, like did you try the beanstalk? Did you try that? It could be your wind sail or whatever. Like, what are we doing? Like,
Wind
why?
sail. Did you just combine windsurf and light sail?
Probably. It's just what I'm saying. Like, it's like, oh, hey, you know what I need really quick? I need to set up a web server. Well, I'm going to need a Rosetta Stone to figure out which one a web server is in this ecosystem. Like, is it like a trick to try to like get vendor lock-in because now you can speak the lexicon of AWS, or are they just trying to be cute? Like, what? Like, break it down for me, because I've for years have been quietly angry about this. And I'm not blaming you. I'm not getting all Massachusetts up here on you. I'm just it boils my blood, dude. What are we doing here?
Well, it's certainly not my choice. Otherwise, I would be renaming some stuff. And honestly, I don't know. That's a good question for an AWS employee. I can't tell you that. I don't know what their decision-making process is for naming stuff. But so there's I don't think it's that known of a fact. Maybe it is. I don't know. They also make it trickier because sometimes people misname their services. What I mean by that is they'll call it like AWS S3. Actually, it's called Amazon S3 versus AWS Lambda. Some people call it Amazon Lambda. It's not Amazon, it's AWS. So they also have the prefix is either Amazon or AWS. And I'm trying to remember, somebody told me this years ago. There's a reason why that is. And I think it had to do with whether it was, I'm going to completely butcher this. This is probably completely wrong, but whether it was built initially for Amazon or not. I can't remember if that's the exact reason, but there's an actual reason as to why some services start with AWS versus Amazon. So that makes it even more ridiculous and complicated. If anybody wants to look it up and correct me on that, definitely let me know. But
This
yeah,
is my inner monologue right now.
I don't have a good answer for you. Sorry.
It always seemed like, to me, like if you're trying to get people on board and using your product, you want it to be as accessible as possible. And I remember when I started messing with it years ago, I was like, okay, like EC2, okay, okay, I'll call it EC2, I get it. But like then I was just like, okay, enough. Like yeah, Snowball. Is Snowball still a thing? Do they still drive those tractor trailers around?
I want to say they may have deprecated it, but that I'll have to double check.
Everybody's in the cloud now. There's no reason to do it. Jesus. Okay.
We should really talk about Azure Entry ID. If you really want to get started about naming things, that would be
Yeah,
fun.
I didn't think there was anything wrong with Azure Active Directory, AAD. I thought it was quite clear. In fact, it was almost, obvious that like, oh, this is AD. Like, yeah. So, are you just trying to throw shade at Microsoft 365 now because you're an AWS guy?
Exactly. I had to revert that to over to Microsoft.
I love it. Have you tried messing around in any of these other environments like Google or Microsoft 365 or Azure?
Very, very little. Over time, a little bit, just out of curiosity, but never enough to be able to say, oh yeah, no, I know this platform super, super well. If you want to call it a cloud platform, the other cloud platform that I spend quite a bit of time in other than AWS is Cloudflare. So I do like a lot of Cloudflare services, especially with my background in web dev. They just build a lot of really cool development tooling, also networking tooling like Zero Trust and all that. So there's a lot of stuff I do and run in Cloudflare in addition to AWS. And between those two, I've just never needed to branch out. They kind of fulfill everything I need right now anyway.
Oh, all right. Well, another kind of, I guess blessing and a curse of cloud is that the pace of cloud innovation is like relentless. Like it's just constantly changing. They're pushing features, it just shows up when you log in. Like how do you, as both a practitioner and as someone who's trying to train people on this tech that's changing all the time, like how do you stay ahead of that? How do you stay on top of that without getting like, dude, like even me in my school, like if there's like, or on YouTube, I'll make like a tutorial video, which by the way, recently someone commented like, bruh, being real, your tutorials suck. I'm like, all right, thanks. I made a tutorial video on standing up a SIM and stuff. And then like, the SIM platform changed something and my tutorial doesn't work. And people were like, bruh, and it's like, I can't spend 2 hours and refilm this tutorial because of config change. So how do you deal with that?
Very painfully. It's a painful part of the cost of doing business in this industry, unfortunately. And it was also a gigantic pain in our rear end at Linux Academy as well. So it's that's one of the problems of creating technical training, especially on cutting edge technology, if we want to call AWS that still. But it's a combination of things. So first of all, I am looking at creating internal tooling that may or may not use some AI that can help in some cases with some of this, but also it's relying on some of these feeds, one of which I just shared recently, that AWS security feed. There's a couple others that you can use as an RSS feed. You can get notifications if you want to. You can feed it into Slack or Discord or whatever. And that can also help you, especially if you set filters on the services you care about. Otherwise, you'll probably get overwhelmed. And that's one of the benefits of me being able to focus on security, AWS security in particular, is being able to kind of ignore the other stuff that's not as relevant to my learners and customers. So I've been able to really narrow down on here's what the AWS security changes are and why it's important. Now I will say, good or bad, a lot of the big changes that happen with AWS in particular are around reInvent, which is in November, at the end of November every year. So usually they start to trickle some stuff out right before that. And then they'll launch a bunch of stuff at reInvent or right after reInvent. So as content creators, you can look at that and you can say, okay, I need to plan some time, set some time aside and go through some content that needs to be refreshed. And then the other component of that is also just letting learners know like, hey, content like this can never 24/7, 100% of the time be accurate because they're going to change UI stuff or whatever else. Let me know when it's no longer the same UI or when something has changed, and I will go in and I will fix it. Thanks for understanding. And some people are kind of mean about that, but for the most part, people are really understanding of it because they're also going through it themselves.
Heck yeah. So what do you do to like relax when you're not living in the cloud?
What do I do to relax?
Like, do you code to relax? Like, I mean, some people find
Actually,
coding relaxing. Do you play video games? Do you write, like, do you contribute to like open source projects that aren't really directly related to what you do? Or, what do you do? Like,
all the above.
Surely you must relax, right?
Oh, absolutely. All the above. I have a lot of hobbies too, but no, so especially lately, AI has kind of reinvigorated my passion for IT. And so in nights and weekends, a lot of times I just get really caught up in this idea of what if I can use AI for this and enhance this part of the platform or whatever else. And so I've been working on some of those projects, and those add a lot of energy. They don't suck energy. Coding can sometimes suck my energy, but a lot of times they also will add and refuel. I see Tyler Ramsby. See, he knows me pretty well. I do also play some Hell Let Loose sometimes at night. A fantastic game if anybody is
Is that
into.
one of those games that's like unforgivingly difficult?
Yes.
Okay. I
Yes.
recently started playing one of those, and I like literally hate the game, and I can't not play it. Like as I'm booting it up, I hate this game. It's Daisy. Did you ever play Daisy?
No.
Oh my
I
god!
know of it, but I never played
Don't
it.
even get started on it. It's like some weird crack. Like I hate it, and I'm like, I'm just gonna log in and play a little bit. Yeah.
I
Anyways,
know. Yeah, I know some friends who played Escape from Tarkov, and they advised me never to play it because it's extremely addictive and very frustrating if you lose everything. So there's that. I haven't been playing Hell Let Loose for a while though. I take breaks, but I have been. There's a game called Manor Lords. I don't know
okay.
if it's an indie game. It's pretty fun. So you build a medieval town and build it into a city basically, and you can conquer the map. And then there's also I like to brew beer, so I'll brew beer in my spare time. I used to grow mushrooms, so sometimes I'll do that as well. Like there's all kinds of different hobbies. I'm a professional hobbyist, I guess you could say, where sometimes I take it a little bit too far. And then I'm considering, this is a more recent thing. I'm doing my first discovery flight in 3 weeks, I think, but I'm considering getting flying lessons. So that would be another hobby there to help me
I love
de-stress a
it,
little bit.
dude. Yeah. I love it. That's cool. It scares the crap out of me flying a plane, especially like although like at the same time I'm such a type A that like I for a while for years I thought my problem of flying was that I wasn't flying the plane and that I didn't have control over it. So like but no, dude, that's cool. Did you pick up any hobbies during COVID? You know how like everybody was like baking bread all of a sudden and doing all sorts of stuff. Like, were you just like left to your own devices to like get some new hobbies?
I think that's when the mushroom situation started happening towards the latter end of COVID. When COVID first started, I had just started Cybr, so I didn't really have a whole lot of time for hobbies at that point in time. Plus, that I moved to Colorado, so that sucked up a lot of time. So yeah, not too many hobbies for me. My wife did develop a few hobbies during that time, so I know she kind of went through that phase. But yeah, no, I think that's the main two hobbies I picked up during COVID. What
I
about
love
you?
it. I'm a huge well during COVID. Um, I mean, Simply Cyber. Like I started Simply Cyber December 19th, 2019. So like 4 months pre-pandemic, before we knew, right? Like we weren't even hearing rumors of like meat markets or wet markets or whatever. Like, and I was pushing some videos out, but then when COVID hit, honestly, so what's interesting is when COVID hit, like half of my team, like they basically furloughed all of the junior staff on my team,
Oh wow.
and I felt really bad. I mean, it was like 6 people, and they're junior, and they're already going to have a tough time getting a job and being marketable, and they're fresh to market, so they didn't have like a backup plan or emergency fund of money and stuff like that. So I was like ramping up a lot of like I was maintaining an active GitHub of free resources, whether it was books, conferences, lectures, like whatever. And it was like, dude, do the free stuff, like keep your momentum, stay busy. Like don't like if you stop moving and you just lay down, you're gonna just kind of persist in that vegetable state. So that I guess that was kind of something I got into. I mean, it pairs nicely with Simply Cyber because I was making content and pushing it, but I kind of got like hell bent on that for a hot minute during the COVID phase. My kids were young too. Like COVID was 5 years ago, so I had a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. So um, like it's a hot mess not having them have play dates or be able to go to school or be able to do all these other things. So I was kind of busy with all that.
I will add too that I consciously try not to just do tech hobbies. I know this is an interesting topic for folks because I've burned out so hard, man. I was completely burnt out right around 2019, like end of 2018, 2019, I was completely burnt out. 2020, I was burnt out. 2021, I was pretty burnt out. And so I was really trying to branch out of IT and tech related stuff. Whereas before, maybe I would mess with a home lab. I'm like, nope, not doing anything home lab related. After I'm done with work, I am doing something completely unrelated to tech. And that honestly helped a lot. So It's great. And now I'm back to the whole AI coding in the evenings. But I do try to sometimes set limits and say, okay, I've been doing that for the past 5 nights. Now I'm going to go play some video games or something non-IT related. And that
I'm
helps
gonna
a
have to
lot.
Google. Well, let me just ask you this. I'm gonna watch the trailer for Hell Let Loose. Before I do that, I want to ask. I did the trailer for Baldur's Gate 3, but I did like the cinematic one because people want me to play this game, and it was really disturbing. Right? It was like horrifying. And is Hell Let Loose gonna like? I can't do horror, gore.
No, no,
Like,
no. No,
okay.
it's World War II, right?
Oh,
World War
okay.
II or World War One? No, I think it's World War II. It's been this long since I've played it. So it's a first person shooter, but it's not horror and it's horror in terms of it's war, so war is horror, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's
Okay, okay.
not monsters and stuff.
Yeah, jump scares and stuff like
Right.
that. Yeah, I
Right.
can't deal with that. Okay, cool. All right, well then I'll check it out. I'll check the trailer out. But do you go to conferences at all? Are you on the conference circuit, either speaking or attending?
Not as much nowadays. I am trying to get back into it just a little bit. However, what's the next one I'm going to? So I'm going to Forward CloudSec in Denver here. I think it's the first week of July, maybe the end of June. I can't remember exactly the dates. So if anybody's going to that, please reach out. I'd love to connect and meet up there. And that one's conveniently located in my backyard.
Yeah.
So that's my first time attending it, but I've heard great things about it. Very excited for that. Otherwise, I went to reInvent last year. I don't really go to a lot of the purely or general cybersecurity conferences as much nowadays. It's been a few years since I've done that,
Yeah.
and now I try to go to. Honestly, I kind of like the smaller stuff. That's really where you can network a lot. So unless it's like a reInvent where I kind of have to go to meet customers, then I try to avoid some of the larger conferences typically.
Oh, all right, right on. Yeah, Wild West Hackin' Fest or Wild West Mile High Fest was just in Denver recently, and that's a pure cyber conference, but if it's anything like the Deadwood one, it's not really it's a conference in that it has talks and stuff, but it's much more of like a retreat and a social, engagement. So if you're looking for a fun one in your backyard, a lot of people in chat went to it. I did not go to it, but I roll my eyes. But it was my wife's birthday weekend. I chose to be home. I wanted to be home with my wife. I don't know why I rolled my eyes, but yeah. Anyways, we're coming up on time here, but I do want to let people continue the conversation with you, Christophe. So where do people connect with you, dude?
LinkedIn's a great way to do that. If you want to search my name, I'm pretty much the only person with as weird a name as this. So you can find Christophe Limpalair fairly easily on LinkedIn. And then also very active on Discord. We have that Discord community at cybr.com/Discord.
Yeah, so let's take a look at this. We'll do it live together.
Cool.
So this is, if you Google CYBR, note it's Cybr, but CYBR, and it looks like it's the second one, the Discord one, Cybr Discord. And when you hit it and it comes up, it'll automatically redirect your redirect your Discord right here to this, and you can accept as you. And there you go. Obviously, you got to go through all the normal Discord, like you're not a bot, you're not going to be a scumbag, you're not going to rip people off, and then you're in the community. So if you're interested, obviously, I feel like Christophe, your attitude's probably going to persist kind of into this Discord community. So if you like Christophe's attitude and what we're talking about here, is it mostly focused on cloud security and training?
It is, but we also have folks who are not in just cloud security. So you can also come in if it's web development, AI, anything related to IT. I think you could find your people here. So feel free to do that.
All right, I just joined. Tyler Ramsey welcomed me to the community, so
Nice.
Thank you very much. All right, guys, I think that's going to do it. I mean, Christophe, dude, you brought so much knowledge today around cloud security, around training. Obviously, guys, the free stuff on the cybr.com, cyber.com website is, you can get some education, get some knowledge, learn for free. And basically around AWS, right? I do think like if you're not going to search out a cloud security job, if you're not going to work within the AWS space, probably you could spend your time doing some other things. But if you're curious and you want to sniff it, this is a great way to do it versus just honestly, I feel like if you just read a book on cloud security, it's not going to give you nearly as much value as jumping into one of these environments and getting your hands on the keyboard. Fairly fair assessment.
It's a massive world. You could 8 years into AWS, I'm still learning a lot. So a single book will definitely not cut it.
There you go. Exactly. All right, Christophe, on behalf of the entire Simply Cyber community, I want to thank you for being here today, for sharing your time and your knowledge and experience. I had a wonderful time. I hope you did too. And I guess until next time, y'all,
Appreciate
stay
it. Thank you so
secure.
much.
Yeah, of course. Cheers, everybody. Bye.